Good morning to you. It's 20 past 9. I've got Matthew Dickinson here ready for the Tech Talk in a moment. It's currently 15 degrees in Dubbo and we're heading for a maximum of about 19 today.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickinson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
You know how much I love that
Yeah,
start, man.
almost as much as I love it.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Clint. Good to see you back again. I haven't chatted to you for a while.
No, definitely not in this studio at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is the difference for us again.
Bit new flash, isn't it?
Yeah, but I always do enjoy talking to you, mate.
Oh, gee, thanks.
We seem to get along pretty well and, share the knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
It's good.
Yeah.
So you make my, because of the angle I'm on, I don't use the Madonna mic, so we might be a
Yeah.
bit awkward today, but we'll be
That's
right.
Yep.
So you make my job so easy. You bring in these lists of great topics for me to cherry pick, the things that I can, feel most comfortable talking
Sure.
about, which I really appreciate.
There's a week's worth of research there for you, Clint. Probably 60 hours worth of research there for you, so don't feel guilty about it at all.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I want to put that back onto you in as well. So the things that you feel comfortable about, I think is only fair. But we'll go into Australian Netflix first. So a lot of people have been at home watching Netflix, and there's differences between which countries are getting what, and the quality and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, most people don't realise that the Netflix that you get is the same. It's not the same everywhere. So the different countries will have different versions of Netflix. And so if you're in America, there might be certain copyright licenses or certain shows that Netflix might have purchased in that country, for example, compared to here. So there's been some comparisons done across the different countries to see where the better quality and the better numbers are. And so Australia came out okay on the outright numbers. So we rank 5th in the world for the total number of TV shows and the total number of actual movies on Netflix. So we go pretty well. We're up into the low 5,000s of different shows and movies to watch. So that probably keeps you busy for a little while. I reckon if we sat down and said, let's watch all 5,000 odd, then we'd be going for a while. So the US is number one, as you can imagine. They're on top of the list there. So that's not too bad. But then there was some rankings done in terms of the quality of those particular shows and movies that are on Netflix, and we came out 5th worst in that, and they used a Metacritic rating, and basically our average score for all of our titles was 62.2, which is quite low. I say 5th lowest of all of those. So it's probably, the quality is not quite as high as some other countries around the world, but the quantity is there. So at least from that perspective, you can cherry pick those little bits and pieces that you like out of there. But the real thing at the moment is they're number one in the world, Netflix, in terms of streaming services. 150 million subscribers they've got at the moment, so it's a fairly big business, but there's some pretty intense competition occurring with Netflix. So you've got things like Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video, but the other thing that's really making it tough for Netflix at the moment are the individual countries having their own streaming services that are specific to that country. So for example, here we might have 9Now or the SBS streaming show, program, or ABC iView. So you've got those ones there that are specific to Australia, and so sometimes the content might be more what we like. So that's where Netflix has got to be really on their game to make sure they deliver content for each country that's just right for them.
Wow, I can see where it starts to get very difficult
Yeah.
and tricky, and for the consumer as well, where I find it's always been the case where even with any sort of pay TV that you're having to have multiple systems so that you can achieve it all.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone talks about the possibility of having a Spotify type service with movies and with TV shows, and at the moment that's been too hard to crack. It's been too difficult for licensing, and you see it. You might be in America back when we used to be able to travel. You might be in somewhere like America, and you go to the Netflix version there, and you go, oh, up there's Seinfeld, and then you come to Australia, you go, oh, where's Seinfeld? Or it might be you can see certain seasons of Breaking Bad in one country, but it doesn't have those same seasons in another country, and you can imagine that all those different licensing arrangements are incredibly complicated, and so the owners of that content, if they can get a few more dollars for it in one country from a different streaming provider, often they'll go that way rather than just selling it to one streaming provider for the entire world. They're trying to maximise their profit. Obviously the streaming service is trying to make it convenient for them. So it is tricky when you travel around the world and look at different streaming services and what they offer. And that's where some VPNs have been popular, where people are pretending to be from another country. They use a VPN to route traffic through. Yeah, that's right, to route traffic through from another country so they can access certain shows.
Yeah, and I can see where negotiations with government as well would kind of make those little roadblocks, but it would also be points of leverage financially.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so bricklayers, it's an amazing trade and an art form, and at the moment there's this thing called the Hadrian 10, which is a robot that can lay 200 bricks an hour. And how it works is it's basically like a CAD-based program in the machine, and as long as it's level, it does some self-leveling.
Yeah.
But as long as, like, if you lay the slab and your slab straight, then from there it can go along and lay 200 bricks an hour.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Now, there are bricklayers, many bricklayers that can lay faster than 200 bricks an hour, and the inventors of this particular machine are saying they're not necessarily trying to just knock bricklayers out of the road, and they've broken the speed record for a robot laying bricks. But what they're trying to do is basically fulfil labour shortages. So around the country there are places where you literally cannot get enough bricklayers to build housing, to build office blocks, to build whatever they might need to build. And so this is the part of the solution, is to build some of these. Now, the world record for a human was set about 33 years ago by Bob Mail, an American, and he did over 900 bricks an hour. So they're not threatening there yet when they're at 200 bricks an hour. But the good thing about the robot laying bricks or bricklayer is that you can turn them on and start going, and basically they just keep going. They don't have coffee breaks, they don't have smoko breaks, they don't need to go and have a sleep. So they're pretty good in terms of just chugging away, laying their 200 bricks an hour. And again, a human can lay faster than that, but a human needs to stop and have a drink and maybe have a break and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's an interesting development. The worry as always is that robots will replace humans in our jobs, and that's always a concern. But when that does happen, when we've seen automation take over from humans have found other work to go and do.
Yeah, and what I like about it is we could have the boys just loading straight from the truck, putting the blocks onto conveyor belts that feed this machine. So
exactly right.
It's a lot of blokes that have just their hands would just be sausages. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's right.
there's that side of it as well.
Yeah.
All right, so
Interesting though.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
This is Tech Talk. You're on DCFM 88.9 with Clinton Everstar and Matthew Dickerson. We're having a good time as always. So there's selfies with COVID is a bit tricky because we can't be around each other. So they've come up with an app. Is it Apple have done this? I think so, where you can have basically a selfie created from home. And as I'm saying this, I can imagine that some of my mates are already there. They've put their own head on everyone. But
the risk here with this one would be who you trust to do the actual compiling of the selfie. So there's basically a patent that's been granted for Apple. They haven't actually developed the app yet, but obviously it's in development. 2 years ago they applied for this patent before COVID-19 was even discussed, talked about, known about. And they were doing it so that people could just tidy up those selfies, or you and I are here in a selfie and Richard isn't in today, so we would have liked him in the photo, so Richard sends us his photo and we add Richard into the selfie with you and I. So that was the original development of it, but of course with COVID-19 it means that you and I and Richard might be in separate locations a few kilometres apart or a few thousand kilometres apart. And this particular bit of software will allow you to take those different photos, send them all to one person, they put them in the one image to create a selfie that wasn't really a selfie. So the idea is that you basically can have those different people and create a synthetic selfie.
I like it, especially at the moment. I've got a young nephew, he's in Queensland.
Yep.
I can't go there.
Yeah.
So for us, it's probably something that, family-wise, we can put together a family photo with restrictions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, it's not available yet, unfortunately, but the patent's been granted, so I can't see it being too far away.
Cool. I'd love to talk. We've got so many topics here. Have we got time to go on another one? Or Richard's just bombed the station. I thought I was getting the wind up, but I'm not. I'm going to keep going because
I want to be in the photo.
Oh, that's why.
Observing close social distancing rules, of course.
Oh, gosh. All right, so we'll quickly go on to some car battery stuff because as I know, I like to try and talk to you about electric vehicles because you're up to date and you own one.
Yeah.
And I've listened to a lot of things happening in America and they're pushing forward hard. Toyota, we've covered a lot of this.
Yeah.
But the battery technology is something that's mentioned here today?
Yeah, that's right. There's a Chinese manufacturer called CATL, and they basically have, or believe that they've come up with the first 2 million kilometre battery. And obviously some people are concerned about the longevity of batteries, and batteries typically come with guarantees ranging from 3 to 8 years. And these examples, different manufacturers might give guarantees of 100,000, 200,000 kilometres or thereabouts for the batteries, but people are concerned about that because that's the most expensive part of many electric cars. When you break apart the actual cost of the car, to replace the battery is expensive. It's not like in the old days where you might pick up a reconditioned engine from a wrecker's yard for $1,000. You know, you're paying a lot for those batteries. But that's where I suppose the real competition is at the moment in that battery technology, how far you can drive on one charge and how far your car will go before you finally have to replace it. And so this particular company is talking about these 2 million kilometre batteries. And the great part about it is after you hit that 2 million kilometres, it's not as if the battery is completely useless, but it's degraded to a state where you don't necessarily get the number of kilometres you want out of it per charge. So then they're talking about the fact that you will then take a car battery and move it into your house. I mean, there's obviously not just a flick of the switch and you take it out. There's a process to go through, but you're not so concerned about the total percentage of charge that you can get out of one in your house because you can just add more to your house. You're not worried about the weight. The crucial part for a car is that you want the weight to be right so that you're not carrying all this extra baggage or this extra battery and basically being able to get as many kilometres as possible. So this is where the development is all happening at the moment. This particular company, everyone talks about this company with Tesla, but that's just one of their customers. They've got companies like BMW, for example, that also use this particular company's batteries. So you've got lots of major car manufacturers out there looking to basically compete in the EV market, which is exciting for all of us because the cars will just get better and better.
Yeah, and I noticed that on this list here too. You mentioned BMW, but Honda, Toyota. That seems like this company's technology is being recognised by these other companies. They've signed 2-year deals to go from there, haven't they, or something?
Yeah, that's right. Various companies have signed up deals, but you're right. Some of those big manufacturers are saying, well, we can't develop that battery technology internally. The same as, you know, cars these days are such a complicated beast, and you've got so many different parts that come from all over the world developed by different companies, and batteries will just be another part of that. You don't have to develop your own battery. You can rely on someone else like Cattle to go and develop that. And that's where there'll be a lot of competition in companies that they don't want to be car manufacturers, but they think they can be battery manufacturers. And there's obviously a need for that.
Yes, absolutely. All right, that's very good. There is a little bit of talk here about renewables in Australia as well. I think that's something that I haven't really talked to you about before, really, and I don't go too hard on some subjects. I try and keep this show friendly and, you know, it gets deep quick.
Yep.
But I think the drought really did expose a lot of what's happening in the northwest of Australia with, you know, once the water was taken away, we got to see a lot of the structure. I watched a lot of footage of Google Earth of people going over the top of Australia and exposing what mining, fracking, taking the water supply and pumping it out and redirecting water supplies and things like that. And I think it's a very tricky one for me because I want to go down the renewable route. I think we should harness the sun as our own bodies do. Yeah. But I also love petrol and driving cars, and so it's tricky. Yeah. So what new? Very quickly, we better round this up.
That's right. So the very quick summary, I've got lots of details in there for you about the different forms of energy and how they're being used and how they're changing. But the crucial message out of that is that renewables are gaining more of a place in our mix, our power mix, and obviously that means non-renewables are going down. The use of coal is going down, so the use of coal has gone down about 9% over the last year, so that's a good thing from a whole range of environmental perspectives and pollution and obviously cost long term. So that's good. My prediction, Clint, you've heard it here first, my prediction is that 2026, there's a lot of talk around the elections around 2030 being this magic time frame that renewables would hit 50% of our use. If you look at the current usage trends, and I've obviously got a whole bunch of information in there for you around those trends and where they're headed, but when you graph those out, my prediction is about 2026 is the year that we'll hit 50% of our power usage in Australia via renewables. And so forget about governments, forget about elections, industry's talking. And industry that has to generate the power, industry is saying, here's what we need to do, here's how we're going to produce that power, and they're seeing that the writing's on the wall for coal, and they're looking at alternative energy sources. So that's pretty exciting overall.
Absolutely. Matthew Dickerson, thank you so much for coming on to Tech Talk and for providing all that wonderful information. Thank you for the listeners. That was a long one. You're on DCFM 88.9. Everyone deserves music.